So as you can see, I'm still trying to adjust to what's going on with talking to a camera, etc. So, hey, hello, hi. This is going to be my very first video on Booktube. And I have been wanting to do this for a really long time now. And I've always felt like it wasn't the correct time to do it or whatever. I visited a local bookstore this morning, which is the little unwrapping situation that was going on at the beginning of this video. And I thought, why not just do a Booktube Newbie Tag and then talk a little bit about the books that I have picked from the bookstore that I visited, and that could be my very first video. Well, the answer would be quite similar because they want to talk to people about books, and it is the same situation for me. I have always wanted to talk to people about books, but then, people surrounding you might not be reading the same kind of books as you. But then if you post a video on the YouTube, then you're reaching a broader audience, and maybe you will be able to find someone who are reading the same book as you, and then we'll be able to start a conversation. Okay, question number 2. What are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? So this kind of related to why I call my channel Luna's Parallel Pages. Of course, I'm Luna, and I recently gifted a friend a book which is an intermediate Japanese English reader. So those are kind of the books, like an anthology of different essays that were written by contemporary Japanese authors. But then you have its original text, the Japanese text on one side of the page, and then you have the English translation on the other side of the page. And those readers, I think, are really helpful when you're learning the language, because you get to see the original text, and then you can, quickly read the translation so that you can understand it fully without consulting a dictionary, etc. And the reason why I really wanted these type of books is because I read both in Chinese and in English. Chinese is my first language. When I was little, I read all of my books in Chinese, and a lot of them were translated into Chinese, so translated fiction, but not in a sense that they were translated from other languages into English, but then they were translated from other languages into Chinese. And that really made me interested in translation in general, and how stories changes or stays the same between the languages. Later, when I was able to read in English at a much older age, I revisited a lot of books that I originally read in Chinese translation and found a lot of interesting things, actually. And I was thinking that if I had those type of parallel page readers, I would get those interesting things sooner at a younger age. So I thought that it would be interesting to talk about my experience reading both Chinese and English fictions and non-fictions and all types of books. Okay, so here on my channel, I plan to talk about books from both languages, because even if I read something in Chinese or in English, there's usually a version out there that people can read in the language that they're most comfortable with. And I've always loved that stories can connect people across languages and cultures. There's so much things that's stays the same to the humanity, and that is really something that I want to explore here on my channel. Okay, question number 3. What are you most excited for about this new channel? So I'm really excited to, just talk to people about books. Talk with people about books, have discussions, and getting recommendations from the comment section. I have been a long time content consumer from the book for the booktube community, and I've always like, you know, I go to certain YouTubers that I quite enjoy their recommendations, and a lot of the times I would check out their comment section and see other people making recommendations on a similar topic, or you know, their thoughts on the books that the YouTuber has posted about. And you know, it's always interesting to read those comments and get recommendations. And I really hope that you know, after I talk about the books that I read, I could see a lot of other thoughts and recommendations in my comment section. So that is something that I'm really excited about. Number 4, why do you love reading? Yeah, it's the same old question. For the escapism a lot of the times, but I have been thinking about this because with all of the ways of entertainment that's available to us right now, reading is like a choice among a whole lot of other choices that you got that are actually more engaging in a lot of the ways. But then I think reading is something that is not really pushing at you. I have had the experience of wanting to finish the book in one day, but then it's not like you got the urge to finish it within 10 minutes or something. But then I kind of feel like the urge to finish a lot of the I don't know, short form content or videos. So yeah, so I kind of enjoy this less demanding nature of reading as kind of a habit. Yeah, so that's my reason for why I love reading. I think it's like a pretty convoluted, complicated thought. I don't know if anyone else is gonna relate. Okay. So what book or series got you into reading? So I was a huge detective story lover, and I absolutely adored Agatha Christie when I was young. I mean, I still love her, but then, you know, my taste and my interest has shifted a little bit. I feel like I don't read as much detective stories from that age, like I don't know, it's called the Golden Age or something, but like, you know, these classical detective stories. But you know, Agatha Christie, she wrote so many books, and a lot of her detective stories are so classic. When I think about The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, it is still among the top of the detective stories that I have ever read. She was just marvelous, like so I really adored her when I was young, but I don't know if I still remember every single detail. But you know, a book like The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, you are not going to forget. Okay, so question number 6. What questions would you ask your favorite YouTuber? And yeah, and then I saw question number 7. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? So I think I'm gonna combine these two questions. For me, it's going to be hard to keep a constant schedule to post, which I am really aiming to do. Maybe like one video every 2 weeks would be ideal. I really want to ask like how they manage to stay consistent with posting booktube videos, especially those who are not doing it full time, because I do have other things going on in my life, and I want to have some advice or suggestions on how to manage that. Of course, I suppose you can always shoot a video every week on what you have been reading lately, but then how is that going to be interesting for everyone is what I really wonder. But anyways, yeah, so how to stay consistent is going to be a challenging thing for me, and I really want to hear what other YouTubers booktubers would suggest me. And then question number 8. When did you start reading? When I was really young, like really little, I think it was like 5 or 6, right after I was able to grasp enough characters to understand the text. And yeah, and I've always enjoyed reading. It's a quiet endeavor. You don't need to ask anyone else to help you with. You just read. So yeah, I think I started pretty early, but then I think in high school life got really, really, really busy, and I wasn't reading as many books. I subscribed to a lot of periodicals, so those were like magazines or newspapers where they have like columns and essays and stuff like that. So I still managed to read those when I was like going to school and on a bus or something like that. But I don't feel like I read enough like books from the first page to the last. And also like audiobooks wasn't a thing at the time, I have to say. Nowadays, you can read more with audiobook, and I think that's really a good thing, and I have been taking advantage of that for sure. Number 9, where do you read? Okay, so I hope you can see there's this chair situation right behind me, and it is essentially where I read nowadays. I do have my desk. If I am reading a, I don't know, philosophy book or nonfiction book with a lot of information that I'm not familiar with, I probably will be reading those books at my desk and, searching things up on my computer, etc. But if I am reading a fictional story, I probably wouldn't need to look up anything, and I would just be laying back on this sofa and read. And then question number 10, what kind of books do you like to read? I want to switch up this question a little bit and answer what type of book I don't read. So I am not really limiting in terms of genres and like the types of books I read. I pretty much just go with the flow, what I was interested in recently, and just pick up whatever book that I want to read. But I have noticed that there's one genre that I almost never read, which is the horror fiction. I don't know, like I am not purposefully avoiding horror fiction. I just feel like the purpose of a horror fiction is to scare you, I think. But I am not a person who enjoys that experience, just to put it lightly. So yeah, I just I don't feel like I have ever read any horror fiction. But if you feel like some horror fiction is really good, in a sense that it's a really good story or something like that, probably you can make recommendations in the comments section, and maybe I will check it out at some point in the future. Yeah. And I think that's the standard 10 questions from the newbie tag. And there's usually a question 11 where they ask, show your collection of books, which I'm going to do right now. Okay, so I want to show you the books that I have picked from the bookstore visit this morning. I thought this might be a good first introduction to what I generally read and interested and liked. So this book is called It's a Guess, and I have actually never heard of this author before, but this is a topic that I am quite interested in. It is like in history of science type of writing, but I don't think it's like a really academic history of science treatment of the topic, but it does cover quite a lot of interesting things, and I was really intrigued by some of the illustrations that was inside, like you know, Gaslight, the film. How is that related to gas as we know it? Like, yeah, it's really interesting to me. And let me find another one. You know, for example, like this poster illustration included in the book. It says nitrous oxide entertainments were popular in the 19th century. I think it's still kind of present right now. I'm not sure if it's legal or not, but it's quite interesting to know that it is not something new. It's already around in 1846, which is like shocking to a certain degree. But you know, like all these kind of like interesting things that you could learn, like how people in the old days treat science, like he is using all those kind of words that you wouldn't associate with science, like magical, delusional, spooky, elixir, musical, enchanting, gods, dreams, sublime, like all those kind of things that you normally wouldn't associate with science, but then he's writing about it. Yeah, I'm really interested to read this book. I've never heard of it, but I found it to be a really intriguing topic. And then the second one is this vintage minis. So it's a book called Desire by Haruki Murakami. So Haruki Murakami, or Murakami Haruki, I'm not entirely sure how, I think it should be Murakami Haruki, but I have read almost every single book by him, but then I keep coming across new books by him. So that's like a really interesting experience, because I feel like, so for all of his novels, I think I have read all of them, but then, you know, he wrote so much for all kinds of magazines and periodicals and, you know, essays, and maybe someone published a new book and he's going to write a book review on that book. So like, and then maybe a couple of years later, someone wanted to do like a collection of all the book reviews he had written for all those type of books. And then, you know, he just came out with a new book. So it's always a delight to read, and I just keep finding new books by him, which is really, really interesting. And yeah, Desire, this one I have never heard about before. And I honestly don't know what's inside, but then, you know, it's a book by him and I have not read it, so I'm going to read it. And yeah, you know, these titles are really interesting. The second bakery attack, I have no idea what's gonna happen, but I am really interested in this story. So yeah, so this one is a really interesting and happy find from the bookstore visit. And then yeah, this book by Truman Capote, it's kind of interesting to find Truman Capote and Murakami Haruki at the same time, because I feel like I remember reading somewhere about an anecdote, like Murakami Haruki read something that Truman Capote wrote when he was in high school, and then he felt like that writing was just superb, and how can anyone write like that, and he will never ever be a writer if Truman Capote such level of writing exists in the world. So like, yeah, I don't know if it's like a true story or if it's like an exaggeration of what he said, but I think Murakami Haruki definitely likes Truman Capote's writing, but I don't know if it's to that degree of admiration. But yeah, but it's still really interesting to find his book alongside Murakami Haruki's book. So, and I kind of rediscovered Truman Capote this year, because for whatever reason, I have never read In Cold Blood. I don't know what happened, but like In Cold Blood was like one of his masterpieces. But you know, I've always had this impression based on Breakfast at Tiffany, you know, what's the writing style of Truman Capote, I would just always think about Breakfast at Tiffany. But no, he wrote In Cold Blood, and that was really like wonderful writing. Although I know there was like controversy surrounding that book, like the level of fiction that goes into it rather than being like a non-fiction writing, or maybe like In Cold Blood, the book reinvented this whole genre. Not reinvent, but like invented this genre of non-fiction writing. Yeah, so I've sort of rediscovered him this year, and I've never heard of this story, so I'm gonna check this out. So yeah, so these are the 3 books that I have bought from the bookstore visit. Okay, so that's gonna be everything I got for this very first video. I hope you've heard something interesting, and let me know if you have read any of the books that I mentioned, if you also loved Murakami Haruki, which I think a lot of people do. And yeah, hope to see you next time. Bye for now.